Welcome to the Farm to School podcast, where you will hear stories of how youth thrive and farmers prosper when we learn how to grow, cook, and eat delicious, nutritious local foods in schools across the country
and the world. Hi, everybody. We're your hosts. I'm Rick.
And I'm Michelle.
And so today we have always a special guest, but today we have someone from what we call the Chicagoland area.
Yay, Greg.
And he is a consultant and is Mr. Greg Christian. Hello, Greg. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, Greg, tell us about yourself. What do you do? When I was introduced to you, I was told you were the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the sustainable food movement, which I'm a huge Star Wars geek, so I know what that means. But that's kind of a lofty thing. What is it you do there in Chicago?
Yeah, and that was a writer that, pinned that on me 20 years ago. So just to be clear with everyone, that was not my idea. And it made it into print. And so people definitely have fun with making fun of that,
Okay,
yeah.
so you are not a Jedi and you're not one with the Force.
I don't know. I think you're one with the sustainable food force.
Okay, there you go.
Seems to me, Greg.
I'm definitely one with the Force, though,
yes.
I guess. So
yes.
There's a couple things we do. One is we have a food service company in Chicago, a kitchen that makes thousands and thousands of meals a day for preschool kids.
Wow.
And it's 92.5% scratch cooking. We're at 52% minimum local or organic food.
That's very specific numbers. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're at 30 meals per labor hour. So it's this zero waste for 20 years.
Wow.
And so we divert like over 98% of our waste from the landfill. And so what that means is that, everything that we bring out into the world on the consulting side, which we mostly work in schools. We love to work in public schools, but any schools, but we're in jails and hospitals and all long-term living. But our sweet spot is the schools, and we bring those schools and big kitchens from processed food to scratch cooking local food in their budget. And so we use our learning laboratory in Chicago that makes thousands and thousands of meals a day, 5 days a week,
wow.
52 weeks out of the year. And we practice, just hyper efficiency. We practice zero waste, and we practice leadership and cross training and all these things that then we bring out into the world, and that's what we do.
The first thing that hit me that made me realize you knew what you were talking about were these stats you threw out. They're very specific stats about scratch cooking and 30 meals per labor hour. I was a food service director for 30 years, and boy, howdy, I know what that term is. And for those of you who don't know, that's how you determine if you're efficient in your kitchen, if you can do it at least to break even or whatever. Labor is everything these days. So like you divide how many meals you serve by how many labor hours you have. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and usually I'm the one who's passionate about data. This is hilarious. But Greg, what I really want to know is what is the food we all love to eat? Can you give us a sense of what a menu would look like a day?
When you say we, you mean the kids, right?
I meant us.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Me and Rick want to know.
Yeah.
And I'm sure all the listeners want to know. What does a meal look like when you're making these meals?
That's so great. Yeah. So we're big into, on the consulting side, finding out what the people in that school or that hospital or that neighborhood or that part of the country, want to eat. And so every one of we're in 17 kitchens now in Illinois. We've done tons and tons of kitchens all across North America, and every menu is different because, what they eat in Buffalo, New York is a little bit different than what they eat in Puerto Rico, which is a little different than what they eat in Hawaii, which is a little different than what they eat in Central Illinois.
Yeah. I think Buffalo, they eat wings, right?
Oh, stop. I grew up in Rochester.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what they
Was it wings?
We eat wings and
Well-
pizza dipped in, I still do this, blue cheese dressing.
Oh, I love blue cheese.
See?
Super fun. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I
And-
derailed you.
And that's fine. And so we find out what people want to eat, and and then we see if they have recipes, and then we help them. And if they don't, we come up with them, and then we help them make it. And so I can just tell you what we're feeding kids in our Chicago kitchen. And just to backtrack a little bit, Rick, the reason I threw out that meals per labor hour is because most schools are at between like 9 and 14 or 16 meals per labor hour, and that's serving in general mostly processed, heat and serve, canned, frozen stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so what we do on the consulting side is we make sure that they stay at the meals per labor hour as they head towards fresh and local, and they can do it. And so they don't need any more labor. It's really important. People think it's more work. It's really more organization and more leadership and more efficiencies. And I can go into that, down the road on this podcast.
Yeah, tell us about that, because that's what we hear. The frightening thing is to transition from that heat and serve with the labor you have.
So you tapped into the force
Yeah.
and you make this happen.
Yeah. What are some steps you go through to achieve that, I guess?
Yeah, we inherited the European style of kitchenness, and the European style of kitchenness that America then does is it's a siloed approach. So in the cafeteria, in the school, in your neighborhood, there's a salad bar person, and there's people that like heat up the entrees and then serve them, and there's maybe a dishwasher if it's a bigger house, and then there's the fruit person. And sometimes they help each other, but in general, they work in silos. And so we bring a different kitchenness. I learned this working in Chinese restaurants in New York City in the early 80s, where, first of all, we teach kitchens, and this is hard to learn, that like let's eliminate station. So when cook one comes in and he or she normally stands and sets up a cutting board here, let's just kind of stop all that. This is hard to do. And then we like to get tables on wheels. So the kitchen design changes with production. And then we teach swarming, which means when it's time to hand cut and bread the chicken tenders in 3-step breading process, let's all do that. And then let's all shift over to the broccoli, and then let's all shift over to, cutting up the oranges or whatever.
Huh.
And so this is a totally different way of running kitchens, and it's scary because what we're like kind of stopping or breaking away from is this way of kitchenness that's hundreds and hundreds of years old. And this is the hardest part for people. And so the leaders of these kitchens that don't have this, I'll just, embodied, don't have this feeling in their body, it's easy to be very resistant. Now you'll see, sliding, Starbucks calls it sliding, which is where you'll see the headset person at the window slide over and make a couple drinks when the drink person's behind, and then slide back to the window.
Interesting.
So in another step in this swarming is that this whole idea of clean as you go is kind of, it's an ancient idea to me.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what I mean.
Yeah.
So if you need 4 people to cut and then bread the chicken tenders, because you got a school of 400, and it's going to take the entree person, if you stay in your silos, all day, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to take 4 people 45 minutes. So what you do is you put somebody in charge of this, in this example of homemade chicken fingers, and one person sets up the station and maybe even gets the chicken, sets up the cutting boards, while everyone is like over in the bakery area getting the blueberry muffins made and panned up into the blueberry things, or one person makes the mix, but then 2 other people slide over and 3 people scoop the blueberries, pops in the oven, then all 3 of them slide over to the chicken tender station that's all set up, and they knock them out.
It's an assembly line, like almost.
Right, but one person set it up and one person's going to clean it up. So then those 3 people slide over after they wash their hands and they jump on the broccoli or whatever. So if you had a camera watching the like my Chicago kitchen, you would see people moving like a swarm of fish.
Swarming.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is how kitchens don't need any more labor to be to at least hold wherever they're at with meals per labor hour. Often they can improve them because this efficiency, this teamwork, this heartbeat, if you will, takes a bit to get used to.
Yeah.
But once they're used to it, then we can take kitchens in a year from like 0 scratch cooking. We have one right now that at the end of year 1 was at 92% scratch cooking, and 30% local food, and with no more labor.
This is genius.
And so I was blessed. I came up, CIA grad, and then I worked in high-end joints and ran them.
Oh my gosh, Greg.
For a lot of years. But I was lucky to spend a couple years in a Chinese kitchen on the Upper East Side.
Yeah.
For the guy that opened up the first Szechuan restaurant in America, David Kay, who was just a famous restaurateur in the 80s, like super famous. And it's too long of a story of how I ended up in this kitchen with all Chinese men, but I did. And that's where I saw it. And I'm like, like, wait a minute. Like, so if you walked into that kitchen in the first half of the day, you could not tell who the wok guys were, who the barbecue guy was, who the expediter was, because you were standing around a table, everyone with a cleaver, and everybody cuts the carrots, and everybody peels the garlic, and everybody fillets the fish, and everybody butchers the pork. And it's like boom, boom, boom. And then the second half of the day, they split up into their station. And so this is the think that we bring to leadership and bring to kitchens. And once they start, they end up at first, when you're a little kid and you're walking down the street and the older people are double dutching on the jump rope, you're like, you can't do it. It's like, I can't do it. So one of the things I do with like Illinois-based houses is I have them come to the kitchen.
Exactly where I was going to ask you. I was thinking the same thing. Their people would they would like, this will never work in my cafeteria. I know my people, they couldn't do it. But if you have an example and you bring people in and show them how it does it, then a light bulb can turn on.
The other piece to this swarming, what people then quickly learn is that it's going to be best to cross-train everybody on everything. So in the kitchen that I'm standing in Chicago, I'm down the hall in the office, when somebody calls in sick, it doesn't skip a beat. The heart doesn't skip a beat because everybody can bake 2,000 blueberry muffins.
Yes.
Everybody can make, 417 and a half pounds of chili. And the other thing that we do is we eliminate volume brain.
What does that mean?
Volume brain.
What's that?
Some people, brain? When they bake, they use cups and, fluid ounces and pounds. So everything is in weight, like a professional kitchen needs to be, and this really helps production. Because what we want to do is make just the right amount of food. So in my kitchen here, if they need, 272 and a quarter pounds of cut up honeydew, that's all they cut. Because everyone in my kitchen in Chicago here is working with, it looks like every kitchen, right? There's a cutting board and a knife and side towels and tasting spoons and salt and pepper. Everything looks the same. And then there's one more thing. Everybody has a scale in front of them all day.
Oh.
And so what happens in these kitchens in general is food waste has been normalized, and it's normally overproduction is not weighed. And so if they make 32 extra burgers, they write 32 each, and make too many muffins or thaw too many muffins. Anyway, there's not a lot of power in the eaches and the yeah. So I'm having a hard time explaining this, but everything is weighed, and everything is weighed throughout the process. So when the weight brain gets solidified in people's bodies, then they can make the exact right amount of food, because we measure overproduction on a scale on all of our projects every day. And the amount of overproduction, that wasted food, which is normalized in our country in general, that's the money that you can use to buy more expensive ingredients right there.
Well, and I think you've hit on the two things that if you're a food service manager, that in order to break even or be profitable or whatever, it's meals per labor hour and food cost. You just hit them both, the food waste and the normalization. I get that totally. Yeah. So what would you think would be a way, is there a secret way to help scale this across the country? This thing. I mean, you are a consultant that helps make this happen on a case-by-case basis, but what are the steps America or the world or whatever needs to do this more often and make it more mainstream?
Yeah, the best I can do to answer that question is a couple things. One is to make a policy related to scratch cooking and local food. So, 50% scratch cooking by 2030 in all the public institutional kitchens. And I made that number up. And, 30%, not counting fluid milk, because fluid milk, you can play games with fluid milk and bread, and then, all of a sudden you're at 25% local, and it's like not really, So excluding, I would exclude at a minimum fluid milk and come up with a goal. And then the second thing, so that's like setting goals.
And we did.
Right? Like,
I'm just going to let you know, in the state of Oregon, this is 2025 November when we're recording, but we just statewide announced a goal of 33%. In the next
scratch or local?
Local. Including, I see what you're saying. It should be scratch. I see.
Including milk?
Nope.
Cool.
But keep going. Because now we're like, now what do we do? We're really counting on you, Greg. Help us out. What are we going to do?
Yeah, I would love to help you out. So what I've been doing when COVID hit, and we all of a sudden couldn't be in kitchens because we weren't the necessary people, I immediately pivoted with my team to making videos. And so we have probably 100 videos, and they're how-tos to do this whole process. And so what we did in those videos is we took 20 years of our practicing this, like making money, practicing this. And now those are all built. And we're going to make more next year. We have to do a whole series on leadership. What we find is that at the end of the day, this is about people, and leading these kitchens that are mostly heat and serve is one kind of a leader, but then to motivate and inspire the team that doesn't have the skills to really cook, that's another level of leadership that a lot of people need help with. And so I think that it's going to be through videos. And this year, 2026, we're going to start to practice this by having schools do a 4-day summer training, and then a once a month phone call with us. And we're not going to ever go to their kitchen, and we're going to tell them what equipment they need, teach them how to make a menu, and then watch the videos and do it. And we think that people can do this just through the videos, because we have some of our older customers that, like from years ago, we gave the videos for free because we wanted them to beat them up, practice, see what works and doesn't work. And they're using the videos to train their new people, and they love them because that's where our world is going. People are like on their phones and watching videos. So, and I think that there should be or could be a stipend to pay people to watch the videos on their own time.
Oh.
And as a group. So that's what I think the solution is, because, we're ready to scale and we need to do this. The food manufacturers, I honor them, but they run these kitchens, and we need to take the kitchens back and get fresh food. And we need to build local food systems. And the way you build local food systems, and I've been saying it for 20 years, is, through institutional kitchens.
Mm-hmm.
And so it hits a couple of sweet spots. And if we can build palates in kids' mouths so they crave nutrient-dense food. I mean, I'm 65. When I was a kid, it was my mom's job to build the palate in my mouth. So I wanted to eat my salad and vegetables. And I'm not saying a lot of parents aren't still doing that. A lot are. Mm-hmm. But some are working 2 jobs. It's real easy to just pick up fast food on the way home. And so I think the schools are partially responsible these days to build palates in kids' mouths. So by the time they graduate from grammar school and high school, they know what a vegetable is and they want to eat it.
I'm just blown away by this whole conversation, actually. Greg, it's phenomenal, the work you've all done and what you have figured out. And one of the things we hear from folks around the country is, like when you said leadership, a lot of times it goes to the superintendent and the principal. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your experience in working
school board.
Yeah, school boards and administrative leadership. I'm just curious of your experiences.
Most of our work has come from superintendent and school boards. Mm-hmm. So these are first adopters, right? And these are people that really are tired of seeing all the processed, all the food in the garbage can, and then the kids either hungry or crashing from too many carbs or acting out because it's all processed food, right? And so I've dealt only with like first adopters, and so, but I've also done assessments for school leadership. And the reason that the superintendent, the head of school, the board did it is because, like, the moms or the kids stormed the board meeting and said, you got to change the food.
Yes.
And, and so we want them to be a part of it and kind of expect them to. And here's why. Because if there's a problem in the kitchen, like 20 years ago when I started this work in Chicago Public Schools, I used to be a fancy caterer, and Mayor Daley was one of my customers, and he opened the door to Chicago Public Schools, and I went in, lacking humility. I mean, in the beginning of my career in this consulting world, I left bodies, and then I realized, like, I got to be nice all the time, and if
dang.
Will you tell Rick that?
Yeah. I'm
Rick
still trying to figure that one out. Yeah.
Rick. And really what happened, the big turn happened like 10 years ago. I was working in Hawaii on the Big Island. The lieutenant governor brought us out there to do 7 kitchens and 3 islands.
Oh my gosh.
And the lady, it was all women in this kitchen up in Hawaii. And the third day, they all circled around me and they said, we want to talk to you. I'm like, okay, great. I want to talk to you. And they were like, you have to say please and thank you in our kitchen.
Oh.
And I went home, I cried. I called my girlfriend. I'm like, I don't think I can do it. She's like, you could do it, honey. I'm like, I don't think I can do it. Anyway, so we don't leave bodies anymore. And so when there's an issue, sometimes there's an issue in the kitchen, we want to be able to go right to leadership and say, we need help in the kitchen, superintendent or head of board. And we have a resistant person. We know they can do it. They secretly don't think they can do it. Yeah. And so they're what's surfacing is this immunity to change. We have empathy for that. We really do. I mean, and so, but we also know that if we're in a kitchen and the boss, like we're in a project right now, 5 schools in the district, and the superintendent wants nothing to do with the program. And so we're forging ahead. In year 1, the food service director was like really hurt.
Yeah.
Like the superintendent doesn't come to any meetings, doesn't read the reports. And then now we're in year 2. We're just going to do this, and we're going to be proud, and we're going to shine. And whether the superintendent wants to know what's happening in her kitchens or not.
Sometimes my experience, it's been, it's like they don't know, and I'm speaking of school boards, superintendents in the administration, they don't know what they want until you show them what it is. So in other words, I've been at the helm of different operations, different school districts where the public is screaming for local food and school gardens and everything, and it's a big thing. And other ones, it's not that they don't value that. It's that there's so many. They might have other pressing issues like graduation rates, and they don't think food is a part of that. So it's my job in Oregon here, and Michelle's, what we've done for the last 15 years is try to make that more mainstream. And like, we've encouraged people, like, if it's important to you, folks, did you know that every school district in America, you can go to your school board meeting and you find out when the meetings are, and you'll get 2 minutes to speak. And if enough parents say local food and healthy food and scratch cooking is so important to me, they'll just go, oh, then they keep hearing that. And then me as a food service director, I always brought my school board folks to lunch at one of my elementary schools and showed them some of the scratch dishes we've made and things like that. We invited them to ribbon cuttings for school gardens. And if they don't know about that, they're not going to advocate for it. But that's the thing, you know, some communities really care, and some, it's just that they don't know about it, I guess. Right.
Yeah. What I try to do with leadership and the board is get them into the kitchen, come for a meal, meet the cooks, have the cooks tell them their names. You know, believe me, the school board, they all know the football coach's name, all of them.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, well, this is Betty, and she's the number 3 person in the cafeteria. She's been here 20 years.
Wow.
She's, you know, Betty, tell them a little bit more about yourself. Oh, my grandkids are in this school now, but I went to this school, and my kid went to this school, and now my grandkids are. Well, so, you know, this human piece, like, I can't stress it enough. We have all this data, and I have tons of data, and recipes, and processes, and good ideas. But at the end of the day, it's about people. And often the work initially is about getting the heart of the house, that cafeteria, respected more. People complain always on all the projects like they're not respected. But then if you look at the food they're serving, it's like, it would be hard to respect you. Like we're doing a project at the Juvenile Detention Center here in Chicago, and it's, you know, there's 250 young, mostly men, that, you know, just haven't had the right guidance, and they have fallen down. And the kitchen started out complaining about, like, we're not respected. And I'm like, I didn't say this, but I want to say, have you looked at what you're serving for lunch today? You know, and so it's a dance, you know, you two, between getting them respect, getting them seen, and then getting them to take some risks and do things that are initially uncomfortable, like cutting up a bunch of broccoli when they're used to frozen broccoli. Like, that's a thing.
That was brilliant, actually. I'm trying to think what I want to say, in part because exactly what you hit on. My sister in upstate New York was a principal for 20 years, and that's what her focus was. She's like, well, I want the kids to achieve academically. She didn't make the nutrition connection, but she made the respect connection. And that created the environment, you know, in her theory of change. But I guess you know, we're having coffee with you this morning, and I'm just really struck by your story and what you're sharing with us. Because I wholeheartedly believe we all do the best we can with what we have. The information
Totally.
or the tools, and that humans are wired for progress. And so many schools, so many districts, and now more than ever want to be serving better food, and we've just been stuck. And I've been doing this for more than 25 years, and hearing you talk is like the first time I see a break in a specific bottleneck that we haven't been able to crack.
Yeah, what I work on, and I have people around me that are young and smart and fast and computer, and I'm very lucky for that. They're patient with me. I'm like, I've got like paper on my desk with paper clips, right? They don't even know what a paper clip is. But I teach them, like, we're walking into a new kitchen, and we have a bunch of wounded people. And here's what I mean. I'm not talking about what happened in their childhood or in their marriage. I'm talking about watching kids that they love throw their food away every day. And imagine, Rick, if you worked for me and you handed in, and I gave you homework and you had to, or work, and then here's the report, Greg, here's what you asked for. And I took it and I threw it away. Every time you handed something in, I threw it away. Now, for 20 years, Rick, but you don't leave, you stay, because for some reason you stay, right? And it's probably, these people, it's like the love for the kids, the deep love, right? And so we're walking in to people that don't have a lot of tools, where often the kids don't know their names. The superintendent board has never eaten in their kitchen. They don't know their names. And the people they go to church with and their grandkids and their neighbors are throwing their food away. And so what we do is that's why we try to like peel a few layers away. This is straight out of Steve Safran and Logan's book, The 3 Laws of Performance. I've studied systems change with, Senge, and I love Peter Senge. And, you can write all the policies you want. You can study systems thinking a lot, like I have. It's all juicy stuff, right? But we walk in and somebody's making $12 an hour, and they've been there 20 years, and somebody's thrown their food away. A lot of people have thrown a lot of their food away. Their hearts are hurt. They don't open the meeting with that, but their hearts are hurt. So now how do we do a little, I'm not going to say somatic healing. I'm not going to bring a table and put hands on people, but how do we free them up a little bit of the often shame that they have? Their job is to feed kids. The food's in the garbage, and they're crushed. So we get them gently to say what they want different. And we always tell them, suspend the how. Like, let's say you have a great meatloaf recipe or a vegan pizza recipe or whatever it is, and everybody that you serve it to loves it, but you don't know how to make it for 500. Well, we know that part. You just have to dream. And then once they make that first meal, that first blueberry muffin, that first, whatever people eat in Oregon, right? And it's not in the garbage. And maybe it takes 4 or 5 times before it's not in the garbage. And then there's a buzz. The school smells great. And now there's some pride, sneaking in. And they're like, wait a minute, and hope. And so we don't talk a lot about this because we don't want people to be defensive around us. So this piece about people, and the other strong piece is that, like, the leadership piece, it's just weak. I'm not going to say that like almost anyone can run a processed food kitchen.
Yeah.
But the difference, and I can take you to like a 3 Michelin star kitchen, and I can take you to a kitchen where they're serving almost all processed food. The energy's very different.
There you go.
Yes.
And so, getting this accountability, getting this like future-based language. This is from, Werner Erhard and his friends, making promises, giving your word, being accountable. I declare, I promise, right? I request. This is different language that's mostly, I'm sure you use that kind of language, Rick. People weren't like flopping around your kitchens. Everybody was, I'll use the term, on purpose. But in general, you don't have to be on purpose. You're at 8 meals per labor hour, and it's simple food, and you can gossip with the custodian for an hour. And so bringing this piece in, you can't just start with this accountability, leadership, stuff. I mean, we start with it, but we kind of ease in by getting them to dream big first.
Greg, this has been really fun. It's been really enlightening and really good conversation and a lot of food for thought. Pardon the pun, of course. But it's good food for thought for everybody to see what direction we should keep continuing to strive for in our schools. I really appreciate it.
And dream first.
Thanks so much, you two. And
well, everybody, we'd like to thank everybody for so much for listening today.
Farm to School was written, directed, and produced by Rick Sherman and Michelle Markiston with production support from Leanne Locker and Lauren Toby of Oregon State University. This podcast was made possible in part by a grant from the United States Department of Agriculture.
The content and ideas of the Farm to School podcast does not necessarily reflect the opinions of Oregon State University or the United States Department of Agriculture. The USDA and Oregon State University are equal opportunity providers and employers.
Do you want to learn more about Farm to School? Who doesn't? Check out our other episodes, show notes, contact information, and links that Rick is so good at putting in to things like the 3 laws of performance
and
that
Werner
Greg mentioned,
Earnhardt.
Future-based language. Greg, you taught us so much. Really, you just gave us a master's class, and we know we're just scratching the surface. So search that up by Googling up Farm to School Podcast, Oregon State University.
Yep. And we'd love to hear from you. Stop by the website Michelle just mentioned to say hello or give us an idea for a future podcast. And thanks again, Greg, for being our guest today.
Can't wait to meet you in person, Greg.
All right. Thanks, you too.